Hi, I'm Amy Friend from During Quiet Time. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about fussy cutting and paper piecing. So often I think that while we're paper piecing, we find the perfect fussy cut, but it doesn't quite fit the opening. I want to show you how you don't always need to discard that fussy cut, especially if it's the first section that you're placing. You can sometimes move those lines around a little bit on your pattern to make it fit. For example, in this cuckoo clock block from my book Intentional Piecing, the little birds here have to be a good fit to make that block work. However, I could move that line a little bit higher if I needed to, if my birds were taller. In this block, Business Casual, also from Intentional Piecing, I might have a hard time finding the perfect text here for the tag. I might want to change that size of the tag a little bit to suit my fussy cut. And in this plot and trowel block that's sold as an individual PDF pattern for my shops, sometimes I want to use different flower names that are all different lengths. So I'll want to make this tag shorter or longer. And I can do that in all those instances because that's the first section that I'm placing. And I can just easily move those lines a little bit out or a little bit up to make it work. Today I'm going to use my storybook shelf pattern, which is a PDF pattern available in my shops, to show you how I move those lines a little bit to accommodate two fussy cuts that I wanted to include in my block. I was working on my storybook shelf block, and a lot of the fussy cuts I found fit perfectly. For example, let me show you this one on the light box. You can see how that little image fits just perfectly in the A1 section. And then I found this little strawberry, and it fits perfectly in the C1 section. So now what happens, sometimes we can't always find fussy cuts that fit perfectly in those sections the way we want them to. And I think our first tendency is to just say, oh, forget it, the fussy cut doesn't work, and try to find a new one. But in this case, I have two fussy cuts I'd like to use. I'd like to use Massachusetts for the center of this book, but it's a little bit too short, so this H is going to show. And then I'd like to use this windmill for the fussy cut for E1, but it's a little bit too tall. So rather than just discarding those fussy cuts, I'm going to show you how you can very simply change the foundation paper pieced pattern to accommodate your fussy cut. So that way kind of gives you permission to play with the pattern a little bit so that you don't have to throw away those favorite fussy cuts. Alright, so here's the word Massachusetts that I want to fit into this first section of my block. And as you can see, the H would show, and I don't want that to show. So the first thing I'm going to do is pin this fabric so it doesn't move at all. And then I'm going to flip it over and check where that line is. So I know when I'm piecing, D1 comes first, then I'll flip to D2 and D3, and then I'll be going up to D4. Now I prefer to have this line start here. So that's easy enough to do. I'll just have to draw a line that goes all the way across all of the sections. So I take a ruler and I just want to make sure that it's at a right angle so that it's not crooked coming down. And I can do this by just lining up one lines on of my ruler with one of the straight lines of the pattern. Once I have that in position, I can draw a new line straight across. There, so it's nice and dark so you can see, and that will be my new line for the end of D2 and D3 and the start of D4. So all of these lines here we're just going to ignore now in our piecing, and we can go ahead and stitch this section of the block. Let's do the same thing with the windmill. So here you can see that the windmill is a pretty good size for this opening, but the top blade is a little bit too high. So I'm going to flip it over and do the same exact thing. I'm going to make sure that it's pinned exactly where I want it in the block. I think that's pretty important because it shifts very easily. And then I'm going to make a new line, again, making sure that I keep everything square. So I want about the same amount of room below my fussy cut as above. So I'm just going to eye what that would be, something about like that. And then again, make sure that the lines on my ruler are lined up with the outside edges of the block, or another straight line on the block, so that it's a 90-degree angle, and then I will draw a new line. So this is now our new piecing line, and we'll ignore this one, so I'm just going to scribble that right out. And we can go ahead and piece those two books. And it's nice that we didn't have to just throw those fussy cuts out and look for new ones, because I think both of those will make for fun blocks. So here's our finished block. I'm really glad that I took the extra time to change those lines on those two blocks. I much prefer to see the word Massachusetts without any lines of any other part of the design. And I'm glad that I added the windmill because it has a lot of whimsy to it, which is what I was looking for in this block. So next time you go to fussy cut and have that feeling like you wish you could make a fabric shrink a little bit or expand a little bit, think about this trick. Look and see if it's the first section of your fussy cut. And if so, it's really easy to center it on a light box and to make a little adjustment on your pattern. And then you can have the block that you wanted. I hope you've enjoyed this tip.